Switzerland, a place where nature has gifted us with a mystical treasure that captivates the hearts of humanity. These lands exude an enchanting charm, almost as if they've stepped out of the pages of a fantasy novel. Even what lies beyond our reach becomes strangely alluring. Amidst the majestic Alps peaks and lush green valleys, it stands as a living testament to impossible places. A place where humans live in harmony with nature, in a symphonic masterpiece. Each frame will guide you to a reality filled with allure. Join Hiderplanet in discovering where paradise truly exists. There are places in the world that are not only beautiful to behold, but also make one wonder, how does life truly unfold there? Switzerland is one of those places. In the minds of millions, this country appears as a perfect painting, with snow-capped mountains, crystal-clear lakes, vast meadows, and small villages peacefully nestled at the foot of the Alps. Located in the heart of Europe, bordered by Germany, France, Italy, Austria, and Liechtenstein. Despite its small size, this country boasts a rare landscape where mountains, valleys, and lakes intertwine as if nature has poured all its refinement into creating every contour. There are over 1,500 lakes scattered across the country, and much of its appearance is shaped by the Alps. In Switzerland, geography is not just a map, it is the heartbeat of life. The towering mountains create isolated villages. Deep valleys form small, tight-knit communities. The long, harsh winters force people to live with careful planning, discipline, and always being well prepared for the snowy months. Therefore, to understand the Swiss people, you must first understand how they have lived with the mountains rather than against them. Switzerland's history also reflects this spirit. Before becoming a prosperous, stable country known for its neutrality, it was a collection of communities living between rugged mountains. The isolation created by the terrain inadvertently led to highly autonomous societies. Over time, these communities came together, forming the Swiss Confederation, a unique national model where regional diversity is not erased but preserved as an essential part of the national identity. That's why Switzerland today is both modern and ancient. It has world-leading financial cities while still holding onto villages where time seems to pass slower than anywhere else. And to truly feel that beauty, there is no better place than the mountain villages of the Alps. Switzerland is one of the few countries where diversity does not dilute its identity, but rather deepens it. The country has 4 national languages: German, French, Italian, and Romansh. Each region carries its own unique tone and character, but all are united by a common spirit: order, calmness, respect for the community, and respect for nature. In daily life, Swiss culture is reflected in small things. It's the almost absolute punctuality, the way people keep public spaces clean and tidy, the polite but unpretentious mannerisms, and in the sense that everything is well organized, yet not cold. On the contrary, the deeper you go into the mountains, the warmer, closer, and more genuine Switzerland feels. The Alpine culture of Switzerland is particularly vibrant. Here, wooden houses are not just architecture, but the result of many generations adapting to the cold climate and steep terrain. The art of cheese making, dairy farming, the use of cowbells, folk festivals, and small village markets all create a lifestyle where traditions have never been fully pushed aside by modernity. In some parts of Europe, traditions exist only in museums, but in Switzerland, especially in the mountain villages, traditions are lived out every day. It is from this foundation that the villages in the Alps are not only beautiful in landscape, but also rich in spirit. Now each place has its own unique character, and the journey begins in Lauterbrunnen, one of the most spectacular valleys in Europe. My journey in Switzerland began with Lauterbrunnen, and it started with a light sense of curiosity as the road gradually took me away from the more crowded areas of Switzerland and deep into the heart of the Alps. As I went further, the scenery began to change. The spaces grew wider, the mountains started to reveal themselves more clearly, the air became cooler. And then, there came a moment when the entire world seemed to suddenly open up, and Lauterbrunnen appeared between 2 colossal rock walls, tranquil, lush green, and so beautiful that it made one pause in silence for a few seconds. My first impression of Lauterbrunnen was not of the houses, nor the streets, or the people. It was the feeling that this valley seemed to have been crafted by nature with an unusual generosity. On both sides were towering cliffs, almost sheer and cold, while below was a soft carpet of green grass, small wooden houses, clean roads, and waterfalls cascading from high above as if the sky itself was flowing into streams. Here, you can feel that this place is not just a typical tourist spot. It's not noisy, it's not flashy, it doesn't try to impress with bustle. Lauterbrunnen is quiet, but it is precisely that silence that makes everything clearer. The sound of the wind is sharper, the sound of the water clearer, even the sound of footsteps on the small paths is more distinct. And in this space, people don't just look at the scenery. They start to feel like they're stepping into a different rhythm of life. It's like the breath of the valley, sometimes near, sometimes far, but always present. If you stand long enough, you'll realize that Lauterbrunnen isn't silent in an empty way. It has its own sound, and it all comes from nature. One of the most special things about this trip was the feeling that the people of Lauterbrunnen do not live separate from the landscape, but within it. The village does not overshadow nature. It nestles under nature. The small houses at the foot of the cliffs, the narrow roads through meadows, the little charming stations, the quiet cafes, everything seems to understand its place in such a vast valley. This is what creates an extraordinary harmony. In Lauterbrunnen, nature is always the main character. People exist just enough, live just enough, and seem to have learned not to disrupt that balance. And as I ventured deeper into the valley, the journey began to unfold more layers of emotion. It was not only beautiful, Lauterbrunnen also evoked a feeling that was hard to put into words, like a mix of serenity and awe. Because here, beauty doesn't feel fragile. Its beauty is built on stone, on altitude, on water, and on the relative isolation of the mountainous terrain. The towering cliffs don't just serve as a backdrop for the picture, they make one feel small. But instead of feeling intimidating, that sensation is incredibly liberating. It makes you stop thinking too much about the usual noise and start paying attention to simpler things. In many places, people go to check in, take photos, and quickly move on to the next destination. But in Lauterbrunnen, the longer you stay, the more you realize that you shouldn't hurry. This valley doesn't reveal all its beauty in the first few minutes. It unfolds gradually, through each road, each perspective, each moment of the day amidst the impossible places. As the journey started to wrap up, Lauterbrunnen left behind a very special feeling. Not the overwhelming kind you get from grand places, nor the flashy kind that's easily forgotten. It left a quietude, a gentle but deep sensation. A memory of the sound of water cascading through the valley, of the little wooden houses lying peacefully at the foot of the rocks, of the green meadows stretching beneath the clear sky, and the feeling that humans are reminded that there are still places in this world where beauty and life can exist in perfect harmony. Lauterbrunnen is not just a destination. It's like a pause for the mind. A place that, after you've passed through, and you don't just remember what you saw, but also what you felt. And perhaps that's the most precious thing that a journey can leave behind. Leaving Lauterbrunnen, the journey doesn't really depart from the beauty of the valley, but rather begins to elevate it to another level. The road to Wengen doesn't feel like a transition to a completely new place. It's more like slowly stepping out of the valley floor into a massive balcony overlooking the entire Alps. The first thing that makes the trip to Wengen stand out is the unique sense of novelty. It's not just the fresh air, but a type of cleanliness in the rhythm of life. Everything here seems to operate more slowly, lightly, and more orderly. The village lacks the noisy flow of traffic found in many other tourist spots. The absence of regular cars doesn't make the place inconvenient. As on the contrary, it makes the whole space feel like it breathes more evenly. There are no engine sounds cutting through the scenery. There's no hurried feeling of a place overwhelmed by traffic. Only the sound of the mountain trains, the wind brushing past the slopes, and the leisurely footsteps along the small paths remain. As soon as you set foot in Wengen, you can clearly feel that this is a village that doesn't keep pace with the rhythm of the modern world. Though it's not outdated, Wengen has comfort, neatness, tourism, and services. From many corners of the village, the view stretches far, looking down at Lauterbrunnen below, across grassy slopes, and toward the snow-covered mountains standing still on the horizon. Walking through Wengen is a very different experience compared to many other places in Switzerland. And if Lauterbrunnen gives you the feeling of being embraced by a massive valley, then Wengen feels like a perfect viewpoint where humans are placed high up to see everything more clearly. It's beautiful because of how people live here. Living this high means that everything requires its own kind of adaptation. Moving around, transporting goods, maintaining daily life, welcoming tourists during peak season, everything demands good organization and the discipline that is very typical of Switzerland. In a place where the landscape is so fragile, people seem to understand that they cannot live recklessly, and perhaps that's what creates the unique charm of Wengen. It's beautiful not only because of the mountains, but because everything is preserved. No one truly wants to rush through these narrow streets. No one just wants to visit, would take a few photos and leave immediately. Wengen has a strange way of keeping people there longer, with its almost absolute tranquility. You could sit in a small courtyard, watching the sunlight fall on distant mountain peaks, and almost not feel the need to do anything else. You could continue walking along small paths between chalets, looking at windows full of flowers, and feel like you're passing through a place that still maintains a very gentle, balanced way of life. Come to Wengen and you won't lose your composure. It still maintains a sense of order, cleanliness, and depth, as if, no matter the season, this village will never let itself be swept away from its inherent nature. The people live in a space that tourists often see as the ideal vacation spot, but for them, it's the rhythm of daily life. Perhaps that's what makes Wengen so memorable. It's not a beauty built just for admiration. It's a beauty that has entered life, become a part of the routine, of memories, and of the way people grow up here. On this journey, Wengen left a different feeling than Lauterbrunnen. While Lauterbrunnen impresses with its towering cliffs and the endless flow of waterfalls, Wengen lingers in the memory with its tranquility on high, clean light, open spaces, and a rhythm of life that lightens the heart. It's like a breath between the journey, a place where nature doesn't overpower people, nor are people overwhelming nature, but both coexist in a rare balance. And when leaving Wengen, what stays behind isn't just the image of the small, charming chalets or the sun-drenched slopes. What stays is the feeling of having passed through a place where time seems to operate by a different logic. After 2 days in Wengen, I continued my journey to Grindelwald. If Lauterbrunnen is a valley tightly embraced by rocks, and Wengen is a quiet balcony overlooking the world, then Grindelwald feels like an open door, where everything becomes vast and full of motion. My first impression upon arriving here was the sense of space opening up completely. The meadows stretch out, wooden houses are scattered around, winding roads follow the mountain slopes, and in the distance, snow-capped peaks appear clearly, like a massive wall guarding the entire valley. Unlike Wengen, Grindelwald has a more defined rhythm of life. I can see more people, more activities, more movement. But the strange thing is, even though there are more people, and it never loses its balance, there's no feeling of being overwhelmed, no chaotic noise. Everything still maintains the unique order of Switzerland, neat, clear, and with just the right distance to keep the surrounding natural beauty intact. I started walking through the village and quickly realized that Grindelwald is not a place to rush. The roads here don't just lead from point A to point B. They guide you through different angles of the same landscape. Each path opens up a different frame of the impossible places. There was a moment when I stopped in the middle of a small slope, with meadows ahead, houses behind, and snow-covered peaks in the distance. Nothing particularly special happened. There was no event, but that moment was when I felt Grindelwald the most, not with my eyes, but with my senses. In Grindelwald, nature is never still. It's always changing. Clouds move constantly, sometimes covering the peaks, sometimes revealing bright patches of sky. The sunlight slides over the slopes, making the green of the meadows sometimes shine brightly and at other times gently fade. And it's this constant change that makes every step here never quite the same. Every view has a slight difference. It's a place that has learned to combine tourism with real life. Visitors come and go, but the locals stay. They live here year-round. They see these mountains every day. They endure the long winters, the green summers, and all the changes in nature as a part of life, not just a short-term experience. After my experiences, I believe there is a common point in everything. It's the way people here Don't try to control nature, but choose to live with it. And in Grindelwald, that's more evident than ever. There's no confrontation, no imposition, just adjustment, adaptation, and a near absolute respect. The afternoon in Grindelwald has a different kind of beauty. The light becomes warmer, softer, the shadows of the mountains begin to stretch, and the whole scene seems to slow down. For the first time on this journey, I no longer felt the need to rush forward. Grindelwald has a very natural way of keeping you there, not by overwhelming you, but by making you feel content. Grindelwald doesn't overwhelm you in a forceful way. It doesn't try to impress. But it's precisely this that makes it deeper. It's like a place that doesn't need to prove anything, but still has the power to stay in your memory for a long time. And when I left Grindelwald, what remained was not just the image of meadows, no wooden houses or snow-covered peaks. What remained was the feeling of having truly stood in a place where nature and people have found a beautiful way to coexist. Not perfect in an idealistic way, but harmonious enough to make anyone want to return, even just to stand there once again, watch the clouds drift over the peaks, and feel the tranquility that this place brings. So what about you? Have you ever been to Grindelwald or heard of it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below for hiderplanet to know. As I left Grindelwald, the scenery began to change gradually, not in a dramatic way, but as if bit by bit. The open space slowly transformed into higher, more vast terrain, and surprisingly, it became much quieter. The journey up to Mürren, with the gentle ascent from the cable car, felt like a sign of a change in pace of life. When the cable car glided up, it wasn't overwhelming, but rather a soft opening, catching me off guard with the strange feel this village brought. Mürren is not a place known for its hustle and bustle. It doesn't have the lively events or busy streets like many other tourist towns. Mürren lies hidden among the cliffs, soaring high, and it's where I felt as if I was stepping into a space that doesn't belong to the modern world. There were no car noises, no frantic rush of people. Everything was left with a peaceful silence, not absolute silence, but a silence filled with nature. The scenery here is so closely connected to nature that it feels like everything beats to the same rhythm. Everything blends together, no clear distinctions, as if each piece is part of the same story. Walking along the village's small streets, how everything around me was simple, but very different. The rustic wooden houses, the balconies full of flowers, the windows slightly open to catch the sunlight. All of it formed a very poetic picture. And what was special was that there was no crowding or rushing. Everything happened so gently, with no hurry following me. All the sounds in the space seemed to slow down. My footsteps on the dirt path, the wind blowing over the mountaintops, the rustling of leaves in the cool breeze. It didn't feel like a typical tourist place. Mürren doesn't open up to you as a place to quickly pass through. It opens up a space for you to stop and feel every moment. The atmosphere in Mürren wasn't the sharp cold you'd feel in other places. Here, the cold was something pleasant, very pure. It made every sense in your body become sharper, allowing you to hear every little detail in this quiet space. As I walked along the small path, I wasn't in a rush. I just wanted to immerse myself in the space, stop and feel, as if time had stopped to let me merge into each moment of this place. Mürren isn't a place to rush through, nor is it for ticking off a list of places to visit. It's a place to stop and live slowly. Under the traditional wooden roofs, along the winding paths, beneath the hanging flower petals on the balconies, everything here reminds me that sometimes beauty isn't found in where we go, but in how we experience everything. Each step seemed to open up a new scene, not just visually, but a comprehensive feeling of space. Looking out into the distance, where the mountains surrounded the village, I realized that in Mürren, what I found wasn't just beautiful views, and it was the feeling of harmony. Harmony between humans and nature. Harmony between the old and the new. And most importantly, harmony between myself and the surrounding space. Everything in Mürren, from the houses to the paths, from the sky to the distant peaks, was connected in a special way. Nothing here was by chance. Every detail was part of the wonderful harmony this place brings. Every small wooden house, every winding path, every snow-capped mountain in the distance, each was an essential part of this picture. Mürren may not be the most beautiful village in the eyes of everyone, but for me, it's the place where I truly felt at peace, where I could feel each breath of nature and live in the rhythm of a quiet space. Here, time seemed to stand still, and I was left with only myself in a world that wasn't rushing. It brings the feeling of a place where life doesn't have to be in a hurry, where beauty doesn't come from showiness, but from a delicate harmony with nature. Mürren will forever be a stop on my journey, where I didn't just find beautiful views, but found myself among this magnificent nature. Leaving Mürren, the journey to Andermatt offered a very different feeling. It wasn't a smooth transition, but a distinct change, as I began to immerse myself in a natural landscape that was not only vast, but also held the story of the roads winding through the Alps. When I arrived in Andermatt, the space before me opened up dramatically. The mountain peaks were no longer as close as they had been in Mürren, but now receded into the distance, creating a sense of vastness and encompassing everything. The narrow streets and the traditional wooden houses all retained the peacefulness of a mountain village. But the most striking difference is the sense of history, of the roots connecting civilizations. It's like a landmark, a crossroads of the roads through the Alps. This village is not only connected to the natural beauty of the mountains, but also has special historical value. As a meeting point of trade routes, an important link in Switzerland for centuries. Walking through Andermatt, I felt a different atmosphere. The streets seemed unhurried. There was no crowd of tourists, no hustle and bustle like in big cities. In Andermatt, everything seemed orderly, yet very gentle amidst the impossible places. The people here have maintained a sense of tranquility amidst the beauty of the mountains and a long history. This place is not noisy. Instead, it's a blend of natural and human elements that have lived in harmony for generations. Wooden houses, narrow streets, no high-rise buildings or luxury hotels like in other tourist areas. Instead, Andermatt retains a unique rustic charm, like a long-established village where every stone, every road carries a story of the past. However, this doesn't mean it lacks modernity. Resorts, cozy hotels, and bustling tourist shops are present, but they blend into the space naturally without disturbing the village's pristine beauty. What impressed me most about Andermatt was the way it blended natural beauty with historical significance. The roads winding through the Alps were not only trade routes, but also strategic paths, witnessing both battles and the development of Switzerland. While the village retains its peaceful atmosphere, it's not entirely silent. Every road, every house, every rock seems to tell its own story. Throughout my trip, I traveled along intricate roads and saw towering mountain peaks, but it was in Andermatt that I truly felt the connection between history and nature. These roads not only connect different regions, but also bind people together, creating values that we can see and feel with every step we take today. Everything in Andermatt possesses a natural beauty, yet it's also very special. Every house, every road, every mountain peak makes me feel like I'm living in a part of history, as if I'm not just a tourist passing through, but a part of a larger story, of the roads, of the journeys, and of the people who have passed through this place for a very long time. The feeling Andermatt gives me is unlike any place I've been before. It's not ostentatious, not noisy, but it has a very powerful allure. When I stand in the center of the village, looking out at the distant mountain ranges, I see not just a beautiful natural landscape. I see a part of history, a part of culture, a part of the story of the roads, the lives that have passed through this place. And as I continue my journey, I carry with me not just the images of the wooden houses, the small roads, or the high mountain peaks. I carried with me the feeling of a place that connected not only people with nature, but also people with history. And that's what made Andermatt a special village on my journey. My journey through Andermatt allowed me to witness the magnificent interplay between nature and history. The roads through the Alps were not only trade routes, but also witnesses to Switzerland's development. More from there, I continued my journey to Zermatt, where the majestic Matterhorn awaited me. After 5 days exploring peaceful villages, I continued my journey to Zermatt, and upon arriving, I realized that the trip had entered a whole new chapter. Zermatt, where every road leads to legendary mountain peaks, where the scenery is not only majestic, but also possesses an invisible power that makes everything around seem smaller. The mountains touch the sky, and at their base, Zermatt appears like a shining jewel in the Alps. As I got closer, the most striking image was the Matterhorn, the world-famous mountain, with its jagged peak and year-round snow cover. Although I had known about the Matterhorn through pictures and stories, standing at its base for the first time, I truly felt its grandeur and majesty. Zermatt is unlike any village I've ever visited. It's a place where people and nature are inseparable, where beauty comes not only from the landscape, but also from the resilience of its people. And what impressed me most was the presence of such fresh, tranquil air, rarely found elsewhere. From the moment I stepped into Zermatt, a strange feeling overwhelmed me. The air was so clean that I felt every breath I took was pure. A particularly noticeable feature of Zermatt is the absence of gasoline-powered vehicles, only quiet electric trams or horse-drawn carriages, creating a very peaceful atmosphere. As I walked along the narrow streets, traditional wooden houses emerged in the gentle light of the setting sun. Balconies adorned with flowers and crimson roofs stood out against the distant white mountain landscape, now creating a feeling of stepping into another world. In Zermatt, this scenery allowed me to experience the grandeur of nature, but also the warmth of the local community. I stopped at a small roadside cafe, enjoying a hot cup of coffee in the cool Alpine air. Looking out, I saw people moving about at a leisurely pace, unhurried, yet living in a space filled with the magic of nature. It seemed everyone was living in the rhythm of Zermatt, a rhythm both tranquil and deeply emotional. What makes Zermatt special isn't just the village's beauty, but the way its people live in harmony with nature. They don't try to dominate the Alps, nor do they flaunt urban development. Instead, they live in harmony with the mountains, the snow, and the cool yet fresh air of the impossible places. Although Zermatt is famous and attracts tourists from all over the world, I felt that the simplicity of this village still retains the soul of a Swiss mountain village, with its traditional wooden houses, clean streets, and snow-capped mountains surrounding it all. This village made me feel like a small part of a larger picture of nature. Even as a traveler passing through, I couldn't help but be captivated by the wonderful harmony between people and nature. As I continued along the road, I realized that Zermatt was not just a wonderful place to visit, but a place where I could truly live. It offered not only breathtaking scenery, but also the opportunity to understand how the local people live, how they maintain their tranquility amidst the majestic nature, and how they combine tourism development with preserving the pristine character of the region. And throughout this journey, one thing became increasingly clear to me: Zermatt is not a place to pass through, but a place to live. I wasn't just walking past the streets and houses. I felt myself immersing myself in the slow pace of life that the locals have maintained for generations. As twilight began to fall and darkness gradually enveloped the area, the Matterhorn peaks still stood tall, the last rays of light shimmering on the snow-capped peaks. And I felt as if I had just embarked on a journey not only through villages, but also through spaces, sensations, and moments that could never be repeated. Zermatt is not just a village, but part of a journey that not only unfolded before my eyes, snow-capped mountains and charming little roads, but also a journey of rediscovering harmony between man and nature. And I know that, even as my journey continues, I will never forget the feeling of standing at the foot of the Matterhorn, gazing at the grandeur of nature and feeling the wonderful peace that Zermatt offers. My journey continued to Saas-Fee, a small but wonderful village nestled in the Alps, surrounded by snow-capped peaks and majestic glaciers. While Zermatt had given me a sense of the grandeur of nature, Saas-Fee offered a more delicate and pristine beauty, like an ice gem in the heart of the mountains, where nature remains untouched and unspoiled. Upon arriving in Saas-Fee, I felt as if I had stepped into another world. And unlike the villages I had visited before, where the air was always filled with the warmth of people and tourists, Saas-Fee offered a cold yet incredibly pure atmosphere. Everything here seemed to be made of snow, ice, and rock. From the snow-covered roads to the cozy wooden houses, everything had a picture-perfect beauty. The unique thing is that all means of transportation have been replaced by electric trams or horse-drawn carriages, creating a wonderfully tranquil atmosphere. The only sounds are the footsteps on the snow, the wind blowing through the mountains, and the tinkling of bells on the necks of the horses pulling the carriages. As I walked along the small village paths, the air had a special purity. Every sound became clearer, and the cold air felt refreshing, as if each breath carried new life. The cold in Saas-Fee wasn't a biting chill, but a clean, pleasant one that sharpened all my senses. I felt as if I were living in a pure space where nature and humanity harmonized perfectly. Stopping at a small cafe in the village, I sat sipping a hot cup of coffee and gazing out the window. The outside was tranquil, yet filled with breathtaking natural beauty. I saw snow-capped mountains, quaint wooden houses, and trails leading up the slopes. In Saas-Fee, everything seems so simple, yet that very simplicity creates a magic. Every sight, every sound, every smell becomes clear, and I feel that this place is not just a tourist destination, but a part of vibrant nature. One of the special features of Saas-Fee is the glaciers surrounding the village. These glaciers not only create a majestic landscape, but also represent a place where humans and nature maintain a special relationship. I not only saw the pristine white glaciers, but also how they influence the lives of the people here. From the use of glacier water to how the people of Saas-Fee have learned to live with the harshness of nature. The landscape in Saas-Fee is truly magical. Snow-capped mountains, glaciers glistening in the sunlight, charming little wooden houses nestled in the vast open space, all combine to create a breathtaking picture. But what impressed me most was the harmonious blend of wild nature and human life. The Swiss mountain villages, especially Saas-Fee, not only gave me a sense of majestic nature, but also of a community living in harmony with nature, respecting and protecting it as an integral part of their lives. As I wandered through the village, yes, I didn't feel any tension or rush. Instead, I felt the peace that this place offered. There was no noise, no hustle and bustle of big cities. In Saas-Fee, everything unfolded at its own rhythm, gentle, quiet, and full of understanding. This is what made Saas-Fee a very special destination on my journey. A place where the beauty of nature is not just the landscape, but also the simple, quiet life in harmony with nature. And when I left Saas-Fee, I carried with me not only the breathtaking images of snow-capped mountains and glaciers glistening in the sunlight, but also the feeling of a place where humans and nature have learned to live in harmony, where beauty comes not only from the landscape, but also from the way people live with nature in a respectful and sustainable way. My journey continues, and when ahead lies Foroglio, a village in the Ticino region, notable for its pristine beauty and very different from the places I have visited. But before continuing, I know that Saas-Fee will always be an important stop on this trip, a place where I have felt the magic of nature and the resilience of its people.